Hey everybody. I'm not used to being the guy in front of the camera for these things, so this is going to be pretty fun. But we wanted to uh, wanted to let y'all know that we're going to start a new Wednesday night series. I guess over the next, I guess all the way through the summer is the plan right now, and we'll see if that stays the case or not. But we are going to try to we're going to try to have different staff members up here and having them be able to tell you a little bit about themselves and about what their role here is at the church, and some of their testimonies, because we don't all know all the staff, and we've actually had quite a few additions to the staff pretty recently. So I thought this would be a good idea. So you can let us know if we're just crazy. But yeah, it is a pretty awesome microphone, isn't it, David? I like it. It makes me feel like a real life podcaster. But so I thought, since I'm asking all the staff to do this, that I would actually be the first one to do it, just to prove that this is not a scary thing. But to tell you the truth, it is a little bit of a scary thing, because things go wrong all the time with this stuff, and knowing that things have gone wrong recently with all of our AV, or not AV, but all of our oh my gosh, live stream things on Wednesday nights. Y'all have endured a lot, and I'm sorry about that. But I wanted to make sure, and before I get started on all the stuff that I'm going to talk about, I wanted to go ahead and play the videos that we couldn't play last week that got messed up. But I'm going to start with Jeff Lays, actually, because y'all saw that last week. But yeah, hopefully you'll be able to see all the leadership board videos and know who the leadership board are. So we're going to try. Let me know if it doesn't work. How about that? And I'll be watching the feed at the same time. So this one's Jeff Lay.
Hi, South Spring family. We are the Lays. My name is Jeff. It's my wife, Jenny. Hank, Landry, that was Tucker that just went by. And this is Molly. And we have been members here at South Spring for about 5 years, and we love being a part of this church. I get to be a deacon. I've been privileged to get to serve on the leadership board for the last couple years, and usually on Sunday mornings, Jenny and I are over in the children's building helping out as hallway coordinators, kind of doing whatever's needed over there. And Hank and Landry are part of the youth group, and Tucker is part of preteen ministry. Molly is part of the children's ministry. And we love the mission of our church being that every member is a minister, and there really are so many opportunities to serve, and we have thoroughly enjoyed just diving in and getting plugged in and serving wherever is needed. John 3:30 is a really important verse for us as a family, where it says, "He must increase and I must decrease." And it is great to be able to try and live that out as a family, doing that at a church like South Spring that is easy to do, because that's the hope and desire at South Spring, is that God is glorified in everything. And so thanks for the opportunity to get to introduce our family, and we hope to see everyone really, really soon. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Okay, this one's Bobby Hicks.
Hi, Bobby Hicks here with your leadership board. My wife Pam and I have been members of South Spring since 2017 when it started, and before that South Campus of First Baptist, and before that First Baptist downtown for many years. I've been on the leadership board before. I've been on the finance committee. I work with the 2-year-olds in Bible study, work as a door greeter, and I'm one of your deacons here at South Spring.
Nice. Okay, next we have Ken Lackner.
Hello, my name is Ken Lackner, and I'm one of the new members of the Leadership Board. I'm married. My wife Melissa and I have two grown children, Courtney and Brandon. They both live and work in Fort Worth. We've been attending South Spring for about 5 years or so, and in that time I've been on the Master Plan Committee, which is the group that kind of determine what the campus will look like and the facilities will be needed as the church continues to grow into the future. I was also on the architectural committee for the new educational building. In 2017, my son and I had the privilege of going on the church's Israel trip with Chris and Deborah. We come from a Methodist background, and so if you're going to go toward this fully immersed Baptist experience, what better place to do it than with your own child in the Jordan River. It was a phenomenal experience. In the community, I'm the current board chair of KVNE and KGLY, which are the Christian radio stations in town. Been on that board about 10 years. I'm the past chair for the Mentoring Alliance, been on that board about 7 years. I think the thing for me, for Christian service in general, Christian leadership in particular, is just getting to see the Holy Spirit at work more often than I would, I guess, in my everyday life. You know, if you think about it, you're in a board situation, corporate situation, and everyone is united around asking for God's wisdom and God's provision and guidance and just, you know, God to intervene in whatever the need is. And then to see the Holy Spirit come through time and time again in a way that only God could, and things that couldn't possibly be accomplished by man alone. It's really encouraging and fulfilling, and I think that's why, you know, I say yes to things like the South Spring Leadership Board, and I really look forward to whatever it is that God's got in store as we go forward with this.
Ken's the new member of the Leadership Board, like he said, and it's been awesome to be able to sit in those meetings and hear him use the skills and the experience that God has given him already. But we're so impressed by all of our Leadership Board. So let's go back to the rest of the videos that we have. This next one is Bill Heimbaugh.
Hi everybody, it's Bill Heimbaugh. Most of you probably know me as one of the guys who stands out on the sidewalk by the street on Sunday mornings and welcomes people as they come in from the parking lot. And believe me, I dearly miss doing that on Sunday mornings right now during this time of quarantine. So as much as you guys love coming to church and worshiping in person, just like I do, I also miss meeting and greeting the folks and getting to hear about all your stories. A little background on me. I'm married to my wonderful and beautiful wife, Cindy. Been married to her since 2012. Between the two of us, we have 4 kids, 4 grandchildren, one on the way. All those kids and grandkids are spread out all across Texas, so it's a little challenging seeing everybody at a frequency we would like. But nonetheless, I rest in the knowledge that all of them are plugged in to their church and worship the Lord. I've been a member of this church for almost 20 years now, I guess almost dating back to the time when the church was built here. I think we joined it a year after the church was built. And that time frame obviously covers First Baptist Church, South Campus, and South Spring Baptist Church. And along the way, I've gotten to work with a whole bunch of very special and God-fearing people, as well as with different ministries. Some of those ministries have included teaching the men's Bible class in the early years, to being on the greeter team, which I dearly love doing, being on the prayer team, which I'm very passionate about. I just love interceding for people and praying for people. I just think we're called to do that and encourage people along the way. In 2013, I became a Stephen minister of the church. That probably was largely a result of me losing my first wife to breast cancer in 2008. I think God was calling me in that direction. So now I try to help people who've experienced similar loss in their lives through that ministry. And I just think it's just a vital ministry of the church. I've been a deacon here since 2015. I was blessed to be your deacon chairman in 2018, which put me on the leadership board. So I guess this is year 3 for me as far as being on the LB. 1 as your deacon chairman and 2 as an elected representative of the church. I'm very passionate about passing the gospel on, the love of Christ, to the next generation. One thing I've always had on my heart and remembered from an early age was that Christianity is always one generation away from extinction. So I'm trying to do, I guess, my small part in the kingdom to pass that love and the grace that Christ gives us to the next generation. So I just love and embrace this congregation that's so willing to do that. So thank you for the opportunity to serve you, and God be with you all as we go through these novel times. Thanks.
Man, I love Bill's testimony. I'm always very encouraged anytime I get to talk to him. We have Chantel Longino next, and her beautiful family.
Hey South Spring, I am Chantel Longino, and this is my family. My husband Travis, and this is Micah, and this is Jackson. We have been a part of South Spring since Travis and I got married in 2011. We joined right after we got married and haven't left. I am so honored to serve on the leadership board. It has been truly humbling to get to lead our church in this capacity, make difficult decisions, wrestle through some hard things, and it has just been my privilege and honor to help be a part of that process. We are involved in a couple of different ways in the church. Mainly Travis and I are on leadership with Teen Reach Adventure Camp, which is our church's ministry for teenagers in the foster system. Of course, the boys are in the children's ministry. Travis teaches the kiddos on Sunday morning, and then I teach 11th and 12th grade girls in the Sunday school student ministry. And we've just been involved in a variety of different ministries throughout our time at South Spring, and we are just pumped to be a part of this family, and we love y'all so, so much.
Mercy. And then we've got Ryan Dennison.
My name is Ryan Dennison. My family and I have been attending South Spring for about 6 years, and my wife and I have 2 kids, 6 and 3, and love the way that the church as a whole just ministers to them through the children's ministry, through Wednesday nights, and through just all the wonderful friends that they've made here at the church. And my wife and I get to help out with that ministry some by serving with the Toddler 1 class on Sunday mornings. I've also gotten the chance to help teach the Young Family Life Connections class on Sunday mornings, which has given us a chance to find an amazing community of other parents of small kids and really help to make the church feel like home. As deacon chairman this year, I've also had the privilege of serving on the leadership board, and it's been so great to see how God has guided our staff and leaders through these uncertain times. I'm really excited to see where God leads us from here and grateful for the opportunity to help. Thank y'all.
And then last but not least, of course, my good friend, Stephen Hughes, with the more important member of this duo being Sarah, of course, who's one of the people keeping me sane on Sunday mornings.
Hey everybody, we're the Hughes family. I'm Stephen, it's my beautiful bride Sarah, our daughter Aubrey, our son Nathan, and our son Joel. Hey, we've been serving at South Spring Baptist Church for almost 10 years. We've been members, and you've seen Sarah leading out in the worship team. I've been on the leadership board serving as a deacon and on the safety team. We look forward to getting to worship alongside the rest of you guys in the near future, and it is a joy to get to serve at South Spring Baptist Church. Bye.
I don't know if everybody could see it in that, and Sarah will probably hate me for pointing this out, but there was a moment where it looked like Joel kind of did something. Maybe he was getting a little restless there, and she had to, in the midst of a very mom-looking smile, she got his attention. So that was that reminds me of my family a lot. My wife is always on it when it comes to our kids, especially our youngest, Cade. He's just a handful. I mean, there's no getting around it. So I guess let me start by telling you a little bit about my family. So I grew up in a pastor's home. Some of y'all know my mom and dad. They actually go to church with us here. They moved to Tyler a couple of years ago after they both retired. Dad was a pastor for 40-something years, and Mom was a librarian, but she was a teacher before that, and, you know, overall runner of all things kid-related. Well, me and my sisters were growing up. I have 3 older sisters, Jennifer, Joy, JC, and Johnny is me. And Mom and Dad are John and Jane, so it's just a whole lot of J's. So it was a little bit confusing. I got really used to being called the wrong name, and I always thought that was because we all had J names, and that would be confusing. But now that I have children of my own, I find that I call them the wrong names, even though they don't start with the same letter. So, but I grew up in a pastor's home. We were always at church, always going to church. I told somebody the other day, this kind of occurred to me because of a story about growing up, that, you know, we were the family that was always there when the doors were open, and that makes sense for a lot of PKs or ministers' kids, but we were actually also always there whenever the doors closed, because there was one time, especially that I can remember, that we had to cancel, I think, a Christmas Eve service or something because of ice, but we drove up to the church anyway to be there to tell people that came to the church that we weren't going to have church, and, you know, we were so sorry and everything like that. So we were even there when the doors were closed. So that was kind of a funny story that I was reminded of. But Dad was the pastor of a lot of different churches. When I was born, we were in Amarillo, you know, up in the Panhandle, and Mom and Dad were both from East Texas. Dad was from Mount Pleasant, and Mom was from Nacogdoches. They actually met at seminary in Fort Worth, and so Amarillo was kind of a long way away from family, and so I think it was the hope that they would be able to move closer to family. And so it wasn't long after I was born that we moved down to Victoria, but we were only in Victoria for like a year and a half maybe, and then we moved up to Fort Worth, which was closer to both families. But Dad was the pastor of North Fort Worth Baptist Church from the time I was 3.5 until I was in college, and that was actually a huge answer to prayers for both him and Mom. They had been moving around quite a bit there, and they started praying, and I think it's Psalm 107:7. I can't remember exactly, and they'll have to. You can ask them because they know for sure. But they were basically praying that God would give them a place to live and raise their family. And so with me being the youngest, by the time I went to college, I mean, there was no reason for them to have to stay there. And so they in God's timing and through his ways, he moved them from Fort Worth then to Decatur, which is just a little bit northwest of Fort Worth. And that was a little bit strange to me because Decatur, though we love the people in Decatur and you know, love that city and love everybody that was in Dad's church there. Decatur, to me, I had a hard time feeling like that was home for me because I never lived in Decatur. By the time my parents moved there, I was in college, and so I didn't know really where I was going to end up after college. And during college, I was a summer staffer out at Pine Cove. I got to work 3 summers at the ranch camp, and the last summer that I worked was right after my senior year, and that was kind of one of those bonus summers, I guess, because I got to work there with this understanding that after we got done with summer camp, I was going to have to find a job somewhere, so that was a little bit nerve-wracking, but I was not nervous because I was a single 22-year-old man, and I didn't know what any responsibility was. So that's crazy to think one of these days I'm going to have two of those. But I got to work that whole summer and was really trying to figure out what it was that I was going to do after that. And towards the end of the summer, I got offered a job to come work in maintenance. The guy who was the head of maintenance at that time had been the head pool operator or chief pool operator. I can't remember what the title was. But he had been in charge of the pools, and I, as a summer staffer, had been one of the guys that cleaned the pools at the ranch, and so I knew him. I had interactions with him, and he, I guess, vouched for me, even though I had no business being in maintenance. I didn't have any real technical skill other than breaking things. So, you know, I was basically for 5 years working in maintenance at Pine Cove. I was shepherded. Probably a gentle word for it, by a bunch of older men, not old, but older than me, who taught me how to do things with my hands, and also reminded me that whatever I did, I needed to be doing it to the glory of God, and they were fantastic examples of that. During my time, that early time at Pine Cove as a full-time staff, I moved into staff housing, and staff housing at Pine Cove. There's a lot of different places that you could live at the time, but I moved into the apartments. And there were like two sections to the apartments, right? So if you were looking at the apartments, the right section was all the program staff, or some of the program staff, and there were girls living in the bottom apartment, and they had it was basically 4 apartments that they had joined together, and they all had a kitchen and a living room together, and then these separate bedrooms, and then upstairs it was kind of the same thing but with 2 guys, and so. They were more my age. The people on the left side of the apartment were June Leiniger, Tex Kakuta, and Ozzy. Ozzy was another maintenance guy. Tex was a grounds guy at the time, but he and June had been at Pine Cove since I think 1970, and Ozzy was also an older gentleman. And so it was like I was over here. In separate apartments, because those hadn't been joined together like the other side had. June was kind of in the apartments to the side, and then Ozzy was right next to me, and then Tex was up above us all, and Tex would come down his stairs and then get on a ladder and get on my roof and climb up my roof and then fix his antenna. I mean, it was kind of a crazy, surreal first home outside of my parents' house situation, and I loved it, but it just meant that I spent a lot of time over in those other apartments hanging out, and my sister-in-law, or would-be sister, soon-to-be sister-in-law lived in the girls' apartments that were close there, so I would go hang out over there, and they would invite me over, and we'd watch movies or stuff like that, and through that I got to meet Lori, and the joke of all of this, not joke, it's real, and it is super embarrassing to me, is that I actually asked Emily out on a date first. I don't know why. The joke, I guess, of it is that everybody else knew that I was supposed to be dating Lori, and I just clueless enough not to have any idea. So I soon came to my senses, I guess, and asked Lori out, and we dated for 8 months, and then we're engaged for 4 months, and you know, there was a time there, especially when I had first moved to Pine Cove, where I didn't think that I would get married, and that would be fine. I would just be able to live the single life that Paul talks about. But it had always been my dream to be a husband, not dream. I had always dreamed that one day I would be a husband and a father. And so when Lori said yes to dating me, and then Lori said yes to marrying me, and then we got married, I remember being very grateful, and I still am so grateful that God chose to bless me with my wife. That was one of those things that, I guess, leading up to when Lori and I got married, or when Lori and I were even dating, there was a lot of change that was happening inside of me. And, I think it's, we all go through those. I've heard a lot of people in their testimonies talk about, especially people that grew up in Christian homes, talk about how they, they don't remember a time when God wasn't in their lives, or that they weren't talking with their family about Jesus. And that was definitely the case with my family. My father is one of those truly great men, who is a pastor, who what he preached on Sunday morning, he was actually applying it to his life. And he and Mom both were trying to help us, me and my sisters, to know the truth of who God is and the truth of who his son Jesus Christ is. And that if we put our faith in him, if we trusted him for our salvation instead of ourselves or our own works, that we could actually be free of the chains that I think all of us feel inside of that, inside of our humanity, that says that we can't do this on our own, and our sins are holding us down. And so I was really grateful for them, that there wasn't a part of my life that I can remember not having heard the gospel. I don't remember the first time that I heard it. It just seemed to be the song that was playing in the background my entire life. But as so many people who grew up in that situation, there were markers in my life where I remember faith becoming more mine and less just the thing that was around me all the time. I was a terrible kid growing up. I was kind of goofy and spastic and crazy in a lot of ways, and had a huge temper that my sisters could vouch for. Anytime you get to talk to them, you can say I'm sorry for me, but just a little bit out of control in a lot of different ways. And when I was 7 years old, I remember us sitting at the dinner table, and I feel like it was like a Sunday lunch. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I remember felt like I needed to tell my family that it was time for that I had been saved, and that it was time for me to be baptized. And I don't remember everything about that. I do know the story that I told was that I was laying on my friend Tony Min, who I was my best friend growing up. I would run over to his house almost every day. Sorry, Ann. And ask if Tony could play. And so I told my family that I was laying on the couch at Tony's house and I was watching him play a video game, and that I had asked Jesus to come into my heart then. Which to me sounds a little bit like, even if one of my children told me that, I think I'd be a little bit skeptical. It's not that God can't use Super Mario Brothers to save someone, but it just kind of was out of the blue. And I know for a fact in my own heart that hadn't happened. Like that what I was telling them was a lie. And so my parents very patiently just, said, well, son, like that's fantastic. And we're so grateful. We would love for you to tell the whole church that this is what you believe and to be baptized on a Sunday morning. And so I did that because the right thing to do. That's what I knew I was supposed to do as the pastor's son. And so I got not saved. I got baptized when I was 7 years old. And it was strange because I remember the feeling inside of me that of knowing, like, of knowing that I had lied about this and that I was not saved, and that was something that came from me and not from God. And I remember living with that for 3 years. I actually had a conversation with my oldest sister, Jennifer. It was really quick, but I remember going up the stairs to her room, and I don't remember the whole conversation, but I remember in the conversation basically telling her that, I was afraid of hell and everything like that. And she looked at me and said, "Johnny, you don't have to be afraid of hell because you've put your faith in Jesus Christ." And I don't remember what I said, but I remember as I turned to leave her room, I was thinking, no, I'm not. No, I haven't. She doesn't know, but I know. And so I lived that way for 3 whole years. And I didn't really know what to do inside of that. You as a kid, your brain is going in 100 different directions anyway. So it's not like I thought about it all the time. But I was a pretty introspective kid, and in the time where I wasn't being super goofy. But I remember going then to a Louis Palau conference with my father. My dad took me to this Louis Palau conference, I guess in Dallas. I can't remember if it was in Dallas or Fort Worth, but I watched him. I don't remember Louis talking. I don't remember who all talked, but I remember at the end of the time they had this time of prayer. And I'm sure that other people were responding and going forward and all of that. But what I remember about it was I remember my dad turning around in this Coliseum with these concrete floors, and he kneeled on the concrete floors, and he put his face in the chair, this folding chair that he had been sitting in, and he put his face in this chair, and he was praying. And I probably did the same thing next to him because it was what I was supposed to be doing. I was really good at knowing what I was supposed to be doing. But I remember watching him pray, and I remember watching him and thinking, like, he has what I don't have. This is real to my father. And I don't know how much we talked about it on the way home, but I know that I talked about it to him when we got home. It was late. I think everybody else was already asleep. And he sat in this blue leather-ish chair that we had in our living room. And I feel like I was standing in the living room. It was dark. I think maybe a lamp was on. It's funny how your brain can pick out different specific details about it, but not everything. But I sat there and I talked to him, and I told him that I didn't have what he has. I told him that that I didn't have this relationship with Jesus that he had, and my father, again, with patience and with understanding, I think inside of it, just told me, "Son, we had evidently been talking about it for a while, but he was like, son, you need to talk to God about this, not me. So go up into your room and you talk to God." And I remember going up into my room that night and laying down on my bed, and I was crying because I didn't know what to do. I was a scared little kid, but I remember telling God that I couldn't do it, that I couldn't be good enough, that I couldn't fix things on my own, that even knowing all the right answers wasn't going to fill the hole inside of me. And so I talked to him for a little while, and at the end I just said, I can't save myself. Can you please save me? And so I don't remember if it was the next Sunday or what, but it was in November. I remember it was in November. I walked down the aisle again, and I was super scared because I knew that everybody in that church would remember that, wait, the pastor doesn't have two sons, and we've already baptized one of the pastor's sons. So I knew that they would know that I had lied, and that was scary to me, but it was what I needed to do. It was what was the right thing to do. So we did it. And I got baptized again. And there've been a lot of times in my life, over the course of my life, where I've the faith that that is my own has become more and more my own. That I have, because I've always had a lot of knowledge about God. It seems like that should be enough. And what I keep finding over and over and over again is this knowledge of God is not, or knowledge about God is not knowledge of God, is not me actually knowing God. And so there's so many things that I know, like I know facts about history or science or math or anything else that we're taught in school, but I have my entire life been learning to put those things actually into my heart. And when I say that, what I mean is that I may know them, but I don't believe them, if that makes sense. That I may know them to be true, but it doesn't impact the way that I live. And I think the grace of sanctification is that there's this constant moving of things from your knowledge about them into your knowledge of them, that you will be constantly getting to know the truth, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I don't have to know it all now, and even if I don't know it, or even if I do know it in a theoretical sense, that He will give me knowledge of it in His time, of how this needs to change me and how it needs to affect me and how I can use it to tell people about Him, and that's something I'm really grateful for. Probably the coolest part about my job is that it affords me that ability, that I'm around all these incredibly intelligent people who follow Jesus and who love Him and who know way more about Him and know Him more than I do, and I get to glean from them, and then taking those things and how it needs to change me, I can then lead our people, lead our church, lead whoever God puts in front of me, to see those things and to hopefully recognize how that means that our full devotion, our full worship needs to be pointed to Christ and Christ alone. There is no other. We have no other. And that's something I'm grateful for. I live in gratitude of that we, not only that He is all those things, but that He has allowed me to be in this position, to be able to worship Him and to hopefully help others to worship Him. So that's part of my job. And I was gonna tell you about my kids, and I kind of got lost in everything else. So when Lori and I got married, we found out pretty early in our marriage, I guess relatively, that we weren't going to be able to have kids the normal way. We we prayed on our wedding night that God would give us children, and that He would allow us to actually be a part of adoption or something like that as well. And I thought that would happen after. I thought that would be we would have our biological children, and then we would adopt. That's the way I had seen it done. It's just what I figured would happen, and that's not the way that it happened with us. That's not what we were gifted with. When we found out that we couldn't have kids, it didn't make sense to me to spend a whole lot of money trying to have children biologically, because there are children that need help now. And so, we started looking at different options and everything like that. We ended up going with Methodist Children's Home, and that we would not just adopt, but that we would foster. And fostering is a unique avenue or path inside of being a parent. There's a lot of different things, and we heard Chris Sherrod talk a lot about it. I think what I would say when it comes to fostering is that fostering gives you a different kind of clarity about who these children belong to, no matter how they came into your home. But if they truly belong to God and not me, if He truly loves them more than I can, and then I don't have to fret. I don't have to worry about tomorrow. And it doesn't keep me from not worrying about tomorrow, because I worry about tomorrow, and Lori worries about today. Man, my wife is a worrier, and so fostering was hard while we were doing that, and I think it is hard, and I have no reason to believe it shouldn't be hard. It's a tough thing. It is a beautiful thing that is brought into this world because of broken things, and we get to participate in a beautiful thing for these children and for these families because of this brokenness. And how often is that the case, where some sort of brokenness is bringing beauty? This is the God that we serve. He takes broken things and He makes them into beautiful things. He takes things that are dead and He makes them alive. He takes things that are not and He creates things that are out of nothing. I when I was in college and I wanted a tattoo, which I still want a tattoo, let's be honest, but Dad would have such a hard time with that. But when I wanted a tattoo in college, I think one of the things that I wanted on my arms or something were just the words ex nihilo, which I learned in one of my Bible classes, which just means out of nothing. And that's the way that God creates. And I remember thinking, like, there's so much. I know the nothingness. I know what that nothingness feels like. I have felt that nothingness inside of me. And our God can create a heart of flesh out of stone. He can create things that are alive out of nothing. And I need Him to do that inside of me every single day. I need Him to take something that's dead and bring it to life. I need Him to help me to be a father who is patient, and help me to be a father who is kind and generous and long-suffering with my children, and not quick to anger or not consumed by my own pride or thoughts of myself or my dignity or any of those things. He's not at all concerned about my dignity. He's concerned about my obedience. He wants me to be obedient to Him. And so if I can allow him to create that life inside of me, I will be the husband and father and pastor and brother and son that he's created me to be, and that is just one step closer in following Jesus, in following where Jesus has already walked. You know, he did all of these things perfectly, and we get to follow him inside of that. So there's some stuff about me. I guess talking about this will be a lot easier when we do this in terms of, or when we do this as actual interviews, when there's two people and we're asking questions of each other and stuff like that. I think that's the format we'll go with going on, because, that just seems better. But more things about, I guess, my job here at the church is I get to lead worship, of course. I think that's where everybody sees me doing things. And as we've talked about before, or this past Sunday, leading worship may look a little bit different here in the coming months. It may look a little bit less like being the lead vocalists or anything like that. It may look like preparing just the side of it that's preparing us for worship, and preparing our people or our leaders for worship, and preparing all the room, I guess, for the worship that's going to happen inside of it. So some of that responsibility might not look the same, but leading worship in my mind has always been way more about the other stuff, way more about the preparation than it is the singing. Because I'm not trying to be like super modest inside of this. I don't like the way that I sound when I sing, and so I would much rather hear everyone else sing than myself. And so I love it when we have people like Heather and Laura and Liana and all of these incredibly talented people that we have at our church. When we allow them to sing, or Sarah is such a blessing to me. And really all of the band are, and I'm so grateful for each one of them and how they make my job easier. They're the easy button every week, and so I'm grateful for them. But a lot of what I've always enjoyed about leading worship is the preparation, is the looking at the service and saying how do we use this time together to unify our hearts in seeking God? How do we use this time together to inform and encourage and lift each other up? And by that I don't mean to exalt each other in the way that we exalt the name of Jesus, but that we encourage each other, we spur each other on to love and good works. And as we're doing all of these things, like how does that fit together with who we are as a church and what our goals are as a church? So that's incredibly important to me, to be able to do those things for our church, and to be given that responsibility that I feel the weight of. Believe me. But also, you know, I'm the guy who's in charge of the website and making sure that our AV, audiovisual, and lighting systems, that they work correctly, and that's a full-time job. And all of our IT stuff that our network is working up here, that we're secure in those terms, and that all the staff have what they need in order to keep doing their jobs in that way. There's plenty of other ways, but with technology, that everybody has what they need. And then I also get to oversee the Wednesday night meals, which we sadly got cut short this year, and I know that y'all have felt that as well. And I don't know exactly how that's going to go moving forward, but inside of that, like the hospitality side of our church so important to me. Even if I don't have a lot of interaction actually inside of a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night with greeting people or anything, the fact that our church is striving to be hospitable, is striving to welcome people in and to help people know that they have a place and that we desire them to be here and that they are a part of what we're doing, or that they can be, is incredibly important to me. That's been a thing that God has put on my heart. I think probably because my mother is so genuinely loving towards even people who are strangers. You know, I go to restaurants with Mom and Dad, and Dad will, he'll tell somebody about Jesus that's waiting on our table. He's fantastic at that. And Mom can just make people feel incredibly at ease, and they're just God put those two together to do some amazing things. And so I got to see a fantastic, wonderful Christian marriage and family growing up, and I think it's my hope that everybody, regardless of what their home life is right now, that they would be able to see that when they walk in our doors, and not necessarily with just husbands and wives, but that they would see it as brothers and sisters, that they would be able to come in no matter what their circumstance or home life or anything like that is, and that they would be able to be a part of and welcomed in. And I think that's one of the fastest ways to help people not just know the gospel, like I was talking about before, or know about the gospel, but that they can know the gospel inside of them, that their heart could be changed, and that they can see that this God that we serve, this Jesus who we worship, this Holy Spirit who comes to dwell inside of us, that they're not just doing what's the word? They're not just doing. They're not just changing our behavioral modification. Thank you. They're not just in it for behavioral modification. They're not just in it to make us do things different, like just a little bit differently or tweak or whatever. They're there to make a home. They're there to make a home inside of each one of us, so that we may be welcoming to other people, and they're there to make a home inside of them for themselves, that they may come inside of us and live and change our lives. And it's a fantastic opportunity that we have to come together and to do this together, and I am grateful for it. I should have asked before if there were any questions. I've got the thing up in case somebody had one, but it doesn't look like I'm not seeing any questions or anything like that. Sorry for not telling you before now, because I'm not sure we'll be able to stay on long enough to. I can't vamp that long. I'm used to having the song lyrics in front of me to know what to say, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to be your worship pastor. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work alongside people that I respect and that I love and that I'm deeply invested in, and I am grateful that I get to do these all these different tasks that have been assigned to me, in order that other people may know Jesus, in order that we can remove barriers. We talked a little bit about some of my mindsets behind leading worship in the podcast from last week, it was the week before last. But one of the mindsets that I have is that it's my goal to remove barriers inside of leading worship. I want people to. I can't make anybody worship God. I can't make anybody give their heart fully over to obedience to what He has said. But I'm hoping to knock stuff out of the way. I'm hoping to give less excuses, I guess, for it. I'm so grateful for the way that we do church in that that our mindset is to remove things. It's not to we're not so caught up in having a right way to do it that we can't see where someone else is coming from inside of that. And I've seen that in other churches. I've seen the other things that seem to be so important, the clothing or the words that we say or the smiles on our faces or our hairstyles or anything like that. I've seen those become stumbling blocks. I've seen the type of worship, the type of songs that are being sung. I've seen those become stumbling blocks, and I'm under no illusion that there aren't some ways that we do this that some people also have a hard time doing that. But the goal of it is to take down those barriers. That's the goal. And we're human, and we're going to mess things up. We just do. That's why we call it a dysfunctional family. That's why we are a dysfunctional family. But the goal is always to better than yesterday. To be able to come together and worship in spirit and in truth, not on this mountain or that mountain or with this song or that song or whatever it is, but in spirit and in truth. And so I want to encourage y'all to, I guess, to take every opportunity, whether it's a Sunday morning or a Thursday morning, tomorrow morning when God wakes you up and you are getting up out of your bed and the kids are screaming or the toast is burned or whatever that Newsboy song is, that you would be able to take that opportunity, the one that doesn't feel curated towards you. It feels like it is against you, but take that opportunity, and instead of seeing it as the hindrance to your worship, surrender that moment and surrender your heart in that moment, and that is worship. Being able to obey regardless of our circumstance, that is worship. And I think that's what we're all striving for. So I'm going to pray real quick. Before I pray, I want to say a couple things. Number one, thank you for everybody who has been involved with these Wednesday night things, the people that have been putting them together. Thank you to all the people that have helped put Sunday morning stuff on. Y'all know exactly who you are, and I'm telling you, church, if you don't know, the people that have been involved with doing those, like they have knocked it out of the park in order to keep us meeting together, and that has not been easy, but they have been faithful, and God has blessed that. I'm sure of it. I've seen it. But then also to tell you a couple things that the podcast that we've been releasing on Friday mornings, we're probably going to release earlier now. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to wait until Friday for you to hear something that we want you to hear in between the two services. So we're going to start doing that at least on Thursday morning. I think probably we're going to back it up even earlier than that if we can record it earlier than what we've been recording it. But if you have questions, feel free to email me. My email is on the website under the staff page. You can see a really terrible picture of me because it's me. But anyway, let me pray and then we'll be done. Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to tell people what you have done for me. God, just like the man who was possessed by Legion, I know that you have conquered the evil that lived inside of me, and you have taken it. You have taken it away on the cross, and that you are taking it away from me day by day by day. And I am so grateful that I get to worship you together with your children, together with these brothers and sisters that you have given me through your gospel. Thank you for this family of faith. God, I pray that you will help us to love and to worship you with all of our hearts in every minute of every day. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for forgiving us. Help us to love and to forgive each other. It's in your name we pray. Amen.